The serial killer who killed and returned to the crime scene disguised as a reporter. The news van was always there first, before the sirens, before the detectives, before the blood even dried. A man in a blazer with a cheap microphone and a plastic smile would lean into the camera and report calmly on the horror unfolding behind him. "Another brutal murder," he'd say. "Same pattern, same signature. Police remain without leads." His name was Daniel Cross, and no one knew he was describing his own crimes. He called himself a journalist, a crime reporter for a local channel no one really watched. But what no one realized was that Daniel wasn't just covering the killings, he was orchestrating them. Every murder he committed was followed by a live broadcast. He'd arrive at the scene before the paramedics, interview neighbors, shake hands with officers, pretend to be appalled. His victims were always women, late 20s, living alone, strangled, posed, mouths sewn shut, and always a camera lens left behind, a signature, a message. "I see you watching," it said. Police thought it was a taunt. They didn't realize the killer was literally watching, on screen, in front of them. He kept trophies in his trunk. He wrote scripts in blood. He manipulated the narrative from both sides of the screen. The public feared the killer. The media chased the mystery. But no one ever thought to suspect the man holding the microphone. This isn't a movie. This isn't urban legend. This is the story of how one man turned murder into breaking news, and how he almost got away with all of it. You're about to follow a case where the killer was never hiding. He was reporting live from the scene. Sometimes the killer doesn't hide in the shadows. He hides in plain sight, under lights, behind microphones, inside the very reports warning you about him. That was the case with Daniel Cross, a local journalist. A soft-spoken man with average looks and an even more forgettable voice. He didn't stand out. That's why no one noticed he was always first at the scene. He wasn't chasing the killer. He was the killer. And every crime he committed gave him two things: the thrill of control and the spotlight. Daniel had found the perfect disguise. While police searched for a ghost, he stood right beside them, asking questions, nodding solemnly, pretending to care, all while the blood was still fresh on his hands. For over a year, the murders haunted the city of Rosebridge, Illinois, a population of 40,000, tight-knit, quiet, not the kind of place where women were found strangled in their homes, mouths sewn shut, and a camera lens placed on their chest. But it happened, again and again. And somehow, Daniel always had the exclusive footage. In this video, you'll see how investigators slowly began to unravel the twisted performance. How one detective noticed a pattern no one else saw, and how a single, careless mistake forced the monster to step out from behind the screen and face the camera one last time. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe if you're drawn to the dark truths beneath the surface. Like this video if stories like this make you question the world around you. And comment below with what country and city you're watching from. Let's see how far this nightmare spreads. The story begins now. And it begins with a smile. Chapter 1. Breaking news. The first body was found on a cold Thursday morning in October. A neighbor noticed the front door cracked open. She knocked. No answer. Inside, everything was still, except for the sound of the ceiling fans spinning above a body in the living room. Her name was Hannah Cole, 28, a local bartender. She had been strangled, her mouth stitched shut with black thread, and on her chest, a broken camera lens. No note, no fingerprints, just a message. "I see you watching." The police arrived within the hour, but someone was already there, Daniel Cross, standing in the driveway with his camera guy, calmly rehearsing his lines. "Another brutal murder in Rosebridge this morning. Police say the victim was found in a ritualistic pose, but the killer left no clues. Neighbors are shaken. The community is on edge." He delivered it all in one take. No stutter, no emotion, just control. Detectives roped off the scene, but no one thought twice about Daniel. He was just media, known, trusted, always polite, always on time. He filmed the body being removed. Interviewed the same neighbor who found her. She was sweet, quiet, never caused trouble. The woman sobbed. Daniel nodded, then turned to camera. Back to you in the studio. What no one knew was that just 12 hours earlier, Daniel had stood in that same living room with gloves, a wire, and a needle. Hannah had struggled, briefly, but he had done this before, to animals, to test dummies, to himself. This time it was real, and he felt nothing, just peace. He cleaned up after, wiped the place down, set the scene, and before he left, he placed the broken lens carefully on her chest. It wasn't a signature, it was a mirror, a reminder that everything he did for the eye, the camera, the watcher, himself. The next morning, he filed the report, turned off his mic, and drove home. Alone. No adrenaline, no panic, just silence. He opened his laptop and re-watched the footage from the crime scene, rewound, watched again. Not the body, his own face, his voice. He wanted to see if anyone could tell. No one could. That made him smile. The news spread fast. Rosebridge Killer, the papers called it. Even though it was the first murder, Daniel liked the sound of it. It gave the act weight, fear, legend. He wasn't just erasing a life, he was writing a story. And the best part? He was the one telling it. Later that night, he reviewed the raw footage, froze frames, zoomed in on the scene, studied the face of the neighbor, the cops, himself. He kept a folder labeled Episode 1. Inside it, he saved screenshots, news clippings, and the last known photo of Hannah alive, taken by him before the wire wrapped her neck. And still, no one suspected. The newsroom praised his coverage. "You really captured the tension," the producer said. "The way you narrated it felt personal." He just nodded, said thank you. It was personal. They just didn't know how much. What no one realized yet was that this wasn't the story of a man chasing crime. It was the story of a man creating it. And Hannah Cole, she wasn't just the first victim, she was the first chapter. Chapter 2, first on scene again. It happened 2 weeks later. Same time of year, same weather, different victim. Leah Montrose, 26, elementary school teacher, found in her bedroom. Same method, strangled, mouth sewn shut. This time, the lens wasn't just resting on her chest, it was pressed into her palm, like a gift. And once again, Daniel Cross was already there. The dispatcher hadn't even finished the radio call when Daniel's van pulled up. He adjusted his tie, fixed his hair. This is Daniel Cross, reporting live from Oak Ridge Lane, where police have discovered a second victim in what may now be a serial case. Just like the first, the killer left behind a broken lens. Rosebridge may be dealing with something far more sinister than it imagined. Detective Eleanor Marlowe arrived minutes later. She was mid-40s, sharp, tired, with eyes that didn't blink when the scene got ugly. And this scene was ugly, but not chaotic. Organized, staged. The thread in the mouth was identical, no signs of forced entry, and the body was carefully posed. Marlowe walked the perimeter, took notes. Then her eyes landed on Daniel. Something about him stuck, not his presence, his rhythm. He wasn't reacting, he was performing, perfectly composed, as if he'd practiced this moment, as if he was already inside the story. That night, while reviewing bodycam footage, Marlowe noticed something. Timestamps. Daniel was on scene before the first responding officers. Again, she checked the logs. He had shown up within 6 minutes of the 911 call. How? Who tipped him off? And why was he never surprised? Meanwhile, Daniel was in his garage, developing photos. Not news photos, his photos. Polaroids of Leah. Before, during, after, the light placement, the thread tension, the positioning of the fingers. He critiqued his own work like a director reviewing a shot list. One image he printed twice and kept in his wallet. In the newsroom, the producers called it a breakthrough report. Daniel's tone, his wording, haunting, professional, chilling. He was promoted to lead field correspondent. The more he killed, the more the world applauded his coverage. Every death made his voice more powerful. He was becoming the expert on himself. But Marlowe didn't clap. She started pulling Daniel's broadcast footage. Every frame, every crime scene, every edit. She slowed the tapes down, noticed small things, how he always stood facing away from the body bags, how he never asked real questions, just narrated, how he always arrived first. She requested access to the full dispatch logs, dug into GPS data, cross-referenced times. Patterns emerged. The killer left behind broken lenses. Daniel used broken lenses as B-roll footage. Coincidence? Maybe. But her gut said otherwise. Her gut said, this man isn't covering the story. He's leading it. Still, she had no proof. No fingerprints. No DNA. Just instinct, and instinct doesn't get warrants. But Marlowe had something else. Patience. If Daniel really was the killer, he'd strike again. He'd have to. And next time, she'd be the one watching first. Chapter 3. A hair out of place. 3 weeks later, the killer struck again. Victim number 3. Sophia Hahn, 31. Freelance photographer. Lived alone. Worked from home. Her body was found on her bedroom floor, carefully positioned beside her own camera equipment. Same ritual, strangulation, mouth sewn shut, and this time, the broken lens wasn't left on the body. It was screwed into her camera. The message was evolving, clearer, bolder. Marlowe stood in the crime scene, heart racing. He's not just leaving symbols now, she muttered. He's communicating. The scene was cleaner than the last, more polished, more intimate, almost collaborative, as if the killer wanted Sophia to be part of her own framing. And once again, Daniel Cross beat the sirens. Camera rolling, tie straightened, voice steady. This marks the third body in just 6 weeks. Same pattern, same silence. The people of Rosebridge are demanding answers, but the killer, it seems, is always 2 steps ahead. He sounded concerned, but in his eyes, Marlowe saw pride. She approached him after the shoot, smiled. Hell of a story, she said. He nodded. I just tried to keep people informed. She tilted her head. Strange thing, though, how you always get here first. Any tips on beating traffic? He smirked. Sources, instinct, lucky timing, I guess. She smiled back, but inside, she knew he was lying. Back at the station, Marlowe ran the timeline again. From 911 call to first responder, 9 minutes. Daniel's live feed started 2 minutes earlier. The call hadn't even been dispatched when he went live, which meant he was already there. The probability of that happening 3 times in a row? Statistically impossible. She requested surveillance from a streetlight camera 3 blocks away. It caught Daniel's van parked at the corner, 30 minutes before the murder. The timestamp couldn't lie. He was there, not as a journalist, as a predator. And this time, he left a piece of himself behind. The forensic team collected strands of black thread used to stitch the mouth. One strand was different, coarser, synthetic, not part of the usual kit. Lab results found trace fibers from a blazer, the kind reporters wear, and within the threading, a single blonde hair, short, recently cut, not Sophia's. Marlowe pulled up Daniel's most recent on-air footage, froze it, zoomed in on his lapel. A loose thread, barely visible, same color, same texture. He had stitched her mouth, then rushed to film her death, and somewhere in the process left a thread behind. A single human mistake. It wasn't enough for an arrest, but it was enough for a tale. Marlowe assigned 2 plainclothes officers to follow Daniel. No contact, no pressure, just eyes. Because if this man was who she thought he was, he wouldn't stop. He couldn't. And next time, she'd be ready. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his apartment, editing his next segment. He adjusted contrast, softened shadows, boosted audio. On screen, he stood outside Sophia's home, speaking of sorrow. Behind the screen, he whispered to himself, "They still don't see me." And in his mind, the next shot was already framed. Chapter 4. Scene 4. Lights on. It happened in the theater district, a crumbling black box venue downtown called the Velvet Stage. The owner found the body when he arrived to prep for a matinee. Slumped in the front row, dressed in red, face forward as if watching a show, was Erica Vaughn, 29, music student, local violinist, cause of death, strangulation, mouth sewn shut with gold thread, and taped to her lap, a printed script. Title, Act I4, Audience of One. By now, Daniel knew the drill. Or rather, he controlled it. He arrived 10 minutes before the first siren, positioned the camera, checked the lighting. As the crew scrambled around the scene, he stood solemnly in front of the old marquee and said, "This morning, tragedy struck Rosebridge's creative heart. A local musician found dead in a setting that feels more like performance than murder. A city grieves, while a killer directs." He smiled slightly. No one noticed. Inside the theater, Marlowe took in the scene. It was sickeningly symmetrical. Erica's head tilted just enough to align with the stage lights, a single spotlight above her. The gold thread matched the velvet seats. The script read like a screenplay, detailed, cold. Final line, "Curtains close when the audience dares to blink." It wasn't a crime scene. It was a message, a taunt. And Daniel, once again, was already reporting it, as if he'd seen it before. Marlowe narrowed her eyes. "He's not hiding anymore," she whispered to her partner. "He's performing." Back at headquarters, she tore through the script. It wasn't just symbolic. It had directions, stage cues, body placement, even suggested camera angles. Someone wanted the scene to be filmed a certain way, which meant someone had written this to be seen. She cross-referenced the file with Daniel's report. Frame by frame, the footage followed the script perfectly. Every zoom, every pan, even the way he spoke the final line. It matched the written version, word for word. He hadn't found the script. He wrote it. That night, she issued a quiet subpoena for Daniel's laptop. While waiting for the warrant, she kept surveillance tighter. The threads were connecting now. 4 murders, 4 victims, 4 carefully crafted acts. Same MO, same lens, same stitches, and now, stage directions. Daniel, meanwhile, was already planning Act 5, but he knew something had shifted. Marlowe's presence lingered. He'd seen her watching him from across the theater. She didn't look like the others. She wasn't scared. She was studying him, and he liked it. He wrote in his private journal that night, "She's almost ready, the detective. She's the only one in the audience who deserves the finale, but not yet. One more act, one more note, then the curtain falls." He dated it, burned the page, filed the ashes in a vial beside his bed, and across town, Marlowe stared at a wall of pinned evidence, strings connecting victims to scenes, scenes to symbols, symbols to the one man who always appeared first. "This isn't over," she said, "but he just invited me to the show." Chapter 5. The suicide that applauded itself. She was found hanging in her apartment. Claire Winslow, 35, a reclusive poet. The scene looked almost peaceful, her body swaying softly near a window, arms at her side, a white silk scarf wrapped elegantly around her throat. No sign of forced entry, no blood. On the desk nearby, a typewritten note, "I'm tired of being unseen." The police marked it a suicide, but Marlowe didn't buy it. Not for a second. The moment she walked into the room, she felt it, too perfect, too framed. Claire's toes brushed a hardwood floor, polished just enough to reflect her silhouette. A wine glass was placed precisely in the center of the table. Candle wax dripped once, no more, no less. And the scarf, custom dyed the exact shade of thread used in the previous murders. Daniel arrived later than usual, only by minutes, but it felt deliberate. He stood outside the complex with his arms crossed, eyes low. He didn't report this time. He watched, observed. When asked why, he simply said, "Out of respect for the dead." Marlowe noticed something in his voice, a pause that didn't belong. She took the note to forensics. It wasn't handwritten. It was typed on a 1960s Olivetti machine. Claire didn't own one, but someone else might. Someone who loved vintage aesthetic. Someone who curated crime scenes like sets. Someone who knew how to write monologues in final drafts. Lab analysis showed faint oil from latex gloves on the page. No fingerprints, but on the edge of the wine glass, A partial thumbprint, enough to get texture, not identity, but it didn't match Claire. And there was something else. A hair on the back of her blouse, blonde, cut short. That night, Marlowe dug into Daniel's previous news segments, looked for tiny moments, shirts, cuffs, jackets. In one clip, from a week before Claire's death, he wore a blazer with one white silk thread sticking from the sleeve. She paused, zoomed, stared. "You left your calling card on yourself, Daniel." Still, the department resisted her theory. Suicide fit the facts, no break-in, no bruises, but Marlowe knew this wasn't about facts anymore. It was about control. Claire was murdered, not with violence, but with performance. And Daniel, he had just made the death an intermission. She filed a private report, began building her own case file, interviews, photos, statements. She created a timeline only she could see, each death as an act, each scene building toward a final climax. And Claire was the softest murder yet, the calm before the final blow. Meanwhile, Daniel sat at home editing old audio, splicing voices, repeating phrases. He listened to Marlowe speak at press conferences. He slowed her speech, studied the rhythm. He didn't want to just end the story. He wanted to cast her in it. That night, Marlowe found a letter slipped under her door. No name, no handwriting, just a printed message. "The audience is thinning. Are you still watching?" And beneath it, a single broken lens, glued to the page. Chapter 6. The Smile That Didn't Blink. Detective Marlowe stood in front of the newsroom lobby, arms crossed, coat soaked from the rain. Daniel Cross stepped out of the elevator, straightening his tie. His eyes met hers, calm, amused, calculating. It was the first time they were alone. No cameras, no bodies, just two people, both pretending not to know what the other was. She took a step closer. "You've been busy, Mr. Cross." He smiled. "A journalist's work is never done." Her lips twitched, especially when the journalist keeps arriving before the police. Strange gift, that. He tilted his head. "I chase tragedy. Some people chase it slower." The tension between them buzzed like an exposed wire. They both knew this wasn't small talk. This was testing ground, a place where lies sharpen themselves against steel. "I read your latest report," she said. "Your phrasing was theatrical." Daniel's smile widened. "Art imitates death, doesn't it?" She handed him a folder, not official, not evidence, just a list. 5 names, 5 victims. "You're the thread connecting all of them," she said. He didn't even look down. "That's what reporters do, connect stories." "But you don't report the news, Daniel. You think I make it?" Silence. Heavy. Marlowe stared at him, not blinking. "I think you're running out of acts, and when the curtain falls, you'll be alone on the stage." Daniel leaned in. "Maybe, or maybe the audience will give me a standing ovation." He turned to walk away, but she called out, "You missed a thread on your cuff last time." He paused, just for a second. Didn't look back, but she saw it, a crack in the mask. Then he kept walking. Back in her office, she reviewed everything again, photos, timelines, quotes. But it wasn't just the evidence anymore. It was the pattern of his mind. He didn't kill to hide. He killed to be seen, to control the narrative, to write the headline before anyone else could. She placed her notebook beside a new file, labeled it Act 6. Inside, predictions. Not of past behavior, but of the next crime. Location, type of victim, symbol. She knew he was building toward something, a finale, and she needed to get ahead, just once. Daniel, alone in his apartment, opened a small case. Inside, 5 broken lenses, one for each victim. He placed them in a perfect arc, like trophies. Then he picked up a 6th, untouched, waiting. On a post-it beside it, a single word, detective. And somewhere, in the pit of her gut, Marlowe felt it. That cold, creeping sense that the final scene wasn't just coming. It was already written, and she was the main character. Chapter 7. The Victim Who Didn't Die. It started with a phone call. Anonymous tip, a lead on a new potential victim. A woman in the warehouse district claiming she'd seen the killer. Afraid for her life, she'd only speak to Marlowe, alone. The voice on the phone was low, shaken, almost robotic, and yet there was something rehearsed about it. Marlowe trusted her instincts. She didn't go alone. She had backup waiting 3 blocks away, unmarked car, silent radio. But she entered the warehouse alone, as requested. The inside smelled like rust and forgotten things. Light flickered from a hanging bulb, and in the middle of the concrete floor, a chair and a camera pointed at it. There was no woman, no witness, just a note taped to the chair. Typed, of course, Act 7, the detective's monologue, and beneath it, a red thread. Fresh. Marlowe didn't flinch. She didn't call out. She knew. She was in his scene now. She turned slowly, scanning shadows. Nothing moved, but something watched. Daniel was here. Somewhere. The director, the killer, and she was on his set. Then came the voice, soft, echoing through a hidden speaker. Detective Marlowe, welcome to your spotlight. You've followed every act, analyzed every line. But are you ready to speak yours? She didn't respond. He laughed. I thought not. Most people break in the rehearsal. I was hoping you'd last until opening night. She moved quickly, shot out the light. The room plunged into darkness. Behind her, a door creaked. She pulled her weapon, stepped back, waited. A figure darted across the hallway, fast, lean, male. He ran. He wasn't ready. The trap had failed. He expected fear. He got control. Marlowe chased him down a side corridor, but he vanished. Out the exit, into the rain. Her backup arrived seconds later, too late to catch him, but not too late to grab the camera and the note. His fingerprints weren't on either, but his signature was all over it. In the trunk of her cruiser, she found a box left behind. Inside, a white silk glove, a printed script titled Curtain Call, a photo of Marlowe, taken from a distance, and one last thing, a broken lens, framed in glass. Below it, engraved words, a masterpiece must have a witness. That night she didn't sleep. She cleared her board, rewrote the entire case, not as an investigation, but as a countdown. Daniel had tried to kill her, not with a bullet, but with a narrative. He wanted her final words on tape, her death staged, and she refused to give him the ending he craved, because now it wasn't about victims. It wasn't about justice. It was about finishing the story herself. And for the first time since it began, Marlowe would be the one writing the script. Chapter 8. The bait bleeds back. Marlowe had a plan. She needed to flush him out, not with force, but with narrative. She chose a location, an abandoned hotel in the industrial zone, perfect for a crime of opportunity. She cast her decoy, Lena Ortega, a young officer with acting skills and nerves of steel. They staged everything. Broken locks, eerie lighting, a fake tip leaked through an anonymous forum Daniel frequented. The script was set. Now they waited for the director to show up. 2 nights passed. No movement. Then, at 3:14 a.m., Lena noticed something outside. A folded newspaper on the windowsill. No wind, no footsteps, no sound, just that, and inside it a page torn from a case file. Marlowe's first homicide as a rookie, a victim named Emily Brandt, her first failure, her first nightmare. Emily's throat had been slit, and the killer was never caught. Marlowe froze. She hadn't spoken Emily's name in years. She'd buried the guilt so deep that even she forgot the shape of it. But now it was here, on paper, on cue, with a note scrawled across the blood-stained margin. You missed this thread too. That night, her dreams returned. Flashes of Emily's lifeless eyes, the unanswered questions, the guilt. Daniel had done his research, not just on victims, but on her. He wasn't hunting anymore. He was breaking character, turning the detective into the haunted. She returned to the hotel the next day. The bait was still in place, the room still dressed. But this time, the lights didn't flicker. The air felt watched. In the corner, a Polaroid pinned to the wall. It showed Marlowe asleep, in her own home, taken from inside. Now it was personal. She pulled Lena out. The trap was compromised. This wasn't about catching him in the act anymore. This was about reclaiming control of the narrative before Daniel rewrote her life into his finale. She tripled surveillance on her apartment, reviewed security footage. Nothing. Checked the locks. Intact. Windows untouched. He had been there. Somehow, without a trace, the message was clear. I see you when no one else does. At headquarters, she isolated herself, created a map not of places, but of Daniel's logic, where he filmed, how he moved, what he referenced, and in that chaos, she found a pattern. Each act mirrored a classical structure: exposition, rising action, climax, fall. There were 2 acts left, and one of them was her. She recorded a message that night, not for her team, for him. She looked straight into the lens. You like stories, Daniel. Here's one. You thought you were writing me in, but I'm rewriting you. You can watch me, follow me, threaten me. But know this, when this curtain falls, I'll be the one still standing. She uploaded it to a local blog, anonymous, but she knew he'd see it, because the lens is always watching. Across town, Daniel watched the video in silence, replayed it, paused on her eyes. She wasn't afraid anymore, and that thrilled him. He placed the last lens on the table, beside it a script labeled Act 9, The Betrayal, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know how it would end. Chapter 9, The Mic That Heard Everything. Daniel walked into the studio like he owned it. Black tie, pressed jacket, calm eyes. He told the producer he wanted to record a commentary piece on public fear. Nobody questioned it. He was, after all, the voice of crisis in Rosebridge. What no one saw, standing silently behind the glass, was Detective Marlowe, waiting. She stepped into the room with a smile. Didn't expect you rehearsing this late, she said. Daniel turned, slow, measured, confident. Just refining Act 9, he replied. She moved closer, smiling. Let me help you with the mic. That's when it happened. As he lifted his arms for her to adjust the lapel mic, she made the switch. Quick, seamless. The transmitter looked identical, but this one recorded everything. Not just sound, live transmission. The hunter had been tagged, he didn't notice, too busy toying with her. A city always needs a villain, he said. Without one, the plot collapses. She clipped the mic into place. Then let's make sure the ending's worth it, she said, and walked out, heart pounding, hands cold. But in her mind, she whispered, we got him. Back at HQ, the wire buzzed to life. Daniel spoke to himself in his car, rehearsing lines, mimicking voices. She sees me now. That's good. Fear sharpens the focus. Everything he said was now evidence. Every word, a noose tightening around his neck. 2 nights later, he returned to the abandoned theater. Same location, same shadows. He carried a glass box filled with 7 cracked lenses, and a photo of Marlowe with one word written across it, Finale. Act 10, he whispered. The heroine walks alone, the lights dim, and then the choice. In a surveillance van, Marlowe heard it all. Her lips were pressed tight. Her weapon was loaded. It was almost time. She didn't move too soon, didn't spring the trap, not until he slipped, not until he laid out the whole plan. And when he did, she smiled, because Daniel Cross had just directed his own downfall. The next morning he broadcast his usual segment, slick voice, calm expression. He ended with one final sentence. Sometimes the masks we wear fit a little too well. From the corner of the studio, Marlowe watched in silence. Yours is cracking, she thought. That night, alone in her apartment, she replayed the audio again. She's the one I've waited for. She understands the rhythm of blood. And then, if she wants the truth, she'll have to walk into it. Marlowe exhaled, looked out the window, and said softly, Then I will. Chapter 10, The Final Curtain, Friday. Flyers littered downtown Rosebridge, mysterious invitations to a one-night performance at the abandoned Marlowe Theatre. No time, no contact. Just 5 words. Act 10, Witness Her Fall. Marlowe found the first flyer at 6:45 a.m. She knew exactly who wrote it. She activated the task force. The wire was still hot. Daniel mumbling cues, rehearsing endings. She walks in at 9:12. Lights down. Crowd holds its breath. And then, the choice. The play was real. The finale was live. He wanted an audience. He wanted her. By 8:30 p.m., Marlowe suited up. Kevlar under her blouse. Pistol holstered, hidden earpiece. She carried not just her badge, but the weight of every stitched mouth, every lens, every unfinished scream. At 9:10 she stepped into the theater. Lights glowed softly. 50 people filled the seats, unaware. On stage, a velvet chair, and beside it, Daniel Cross, in a black suit, holding a red-covered script. He clapped slowly. "Well, detective. Right on time." Marlowe climbed the stairs with deliberate steps. "This is madness," she said. "No," he replied. "This is legacy." She looked at the crowd, confused, silent, watching a play they didn't understand. "You put innocent lives at risk. Every masterpiece needs witnesses." He opened the script. "Do you want to see how it ends?" She drew her gun. "I already know." Daniel smirked. "No, you think you do, but you're reading the wrong version." He reached into his coat. Lights cut. A gunshot echoed. Panic. Screams. But Daniel hadn't aimed at her. He'd shot a spotlight. A diversion. She rolled. Took cover. Saw him run behind the curtain. She followed, fast, focused. The prey was fleeing, but the predator was closing in. In the dark wings of the theater, he stumbled to a mirror, stared into it, whispered to himself, "She was always the perfect ending." Then felt cold metal against his neck. A gun. Marlowe's voice behind him. "Drop the act." He raised his hands slowly. "Well played," he said. She cuffed him, leaned in close. "This time, I wrote the ending." Outside, the audience still clapped, still believing they'd seen a performance, not a man's final moment of control. Later, in the interrogation room, he stared blankly at the camera. "Do you think they'll remember me?" he asked. Marlowe didn't flinch. "They'll remember who stopped you." She left the room and let the tape roll. No more stage, no more mask, just truth. Some monsters don't hide under beds. They hold microphones. They stand in the spotlight. They smile for the camera. Daniel Cross wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a myth. He was a man, made of flesh, ego, and obsession, and for a long time he got away with it, because we expect evil to look like a beast. But sometimes it looks like a broadcaster with perfect diction. Detective Marlowe didn't just stop a killer. She rewrote the ending, refused to let her story be another performance in his theater of death. And in doing so, she reminded us of something chilling. The scariest killers don't wear masks. They wear roles. They dress like neighbors, mentors, reporters. And when we clap too soon, they bow, only to strike again. If this story disturbed you, if it made you question who's behind the camera, or who's telling the story, then subscribe, because there are more minds like his, more crimes left unfinished, and more truths buried beneath the applause. Comment below, what city and country are you watching from? Let's see how far these shadows reach. We'll be back soon, with another case that should have never been written.